Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for waiting there. We were just trying to get started, wait for everybody to join the webinar. My name is Steve Marks. I'm the sales manager at ACUTEC. Today on the webinar as well is Amy from marketing.
Hello.
And also we've got Urfaan, who's our Azure and sort of Microsoft specialist, who will be answering a few questions today.
Hi, everyone.
What we'll be doing, we'll be giving you a brief overview of Microsoft Azure. We have muted everybody to stop a bit of feedback. If you do have any questions, please feel free to ask them. You can do this by typing in the box in the bottom right hand corner, and if you can just do that to the organizer, we'll answer those as we go along, or we will have some time towards the end of the session as well, just to answer any questions. But please feel free to ask any. So the way we're going to do things today, I'm just going to ask Urfaan a few questions and really just trying to give you a bit of a first handle in just a bit of an overview of Azure. So first of all, we'll start with I suppose what that one question is: what actually is Azure? So I'll pass you over to Urfaan.
Yeah, well, it's a very complex situation in the cloud, so I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible. And please, if you need more detail, please do feel free to call in, ask questions, send me an email, whatever's easiest for you, but I'm going to keep it quite simple. Azure is the name given to the umbrella of the Microsoft stack products. So it's all the cloud products, and when I talk about cloud, it's a terrible word, but really all it means is a data center somewhere. That somewhere in Microsoft's case is Dublin, and a secondary data center in Amsterdam. And your connection between your site, wherever you are, and that data center, that's cloud in its simplest form. And this is a collection of products that Microsoft have put together and services that allow you to use cloud computing.
Okay. And just for, obviously, some people might find that a little bit too techy. It's cloud or Azure technically is taking what you probably know as a file server in the corner and putting that in another location, and in its simplest term is what it actually does. The first thing we want to go into is backup and backing up to Azure. Can you give us a bit of information about that, please, Urfaan? Or Azure backup, should I say? Okay,
yeah, no problem. So I've decided to start with the backup purely because it's easy for everybody to understand. What we're talking about here specifically is backing up your servers that you've got on premise at the moment and your data. At the moment you might be using disks, or you might be using tapes, and then someone manually takes those off site. What Azure Backup allows you to do is back up the files and folders, but also the entire server to the data center in Dublin, and if you want to pay that a little bit extra, replicate it to Amsterdam. So it's really just your backup now being sent to the Azure data center, the cloud, and you can back it up once, twice, 3 times a day. You can have retention up to 99 years of data, and you don't have to worry about storing that on premise, and you don't have to worry about taking disks off site. If you want to recover a file, it's quite a simple process. You can ask us as your partner, or you can do it yourself, log on and recover a single file. If you want to recover the entire server, it will take a little bit of time, but we'll have to pull the entire image back down and put it onto your new piece of hardware if that piece of your original piece of hardware has failed. So that's the backup element of it.
Brilliant. And just to reiterate there, this prevents you having to worry about taking data or your hard drives off site. This allows you to back up to another area, with a lot of redundancy and resilience that you've got on your current server. Can we go on next to onto site recovery? Could you give us a bit of information on that, please, Urfaan?
Yeah, well, how site recovery is a disaster recovery tool, and how backup and disaster recovery are separate is because backup is really exactly what it says on the tin. It takes your data and puts it somewhere else for safekeeping. What disaster recovery does, it instigates, it starts the process for you to be back up and running. Now, you might have an on-premise disaster recovery solution where we can get you back up and running onto a different server and off you go. But what site recovery is, it's that magic solution that the IT industry has really been looking for, because historically, cloud disaster recovery has worked as follows. I think we discussed this in detail recently, Steve, because one of your clients was looking at our off-site disaster recovery solution. And what we looked at is you have 3 servers on-premise or 1 server on-premise. You need to have another server sitting in the cloud doing nothing, wasting everyone's money. But really, that's what you need. And if the first server on-premise fails, then the second server in the cloud takes over, but until then, it just sits there, redundant, but you're paying for a large resource. What site recovery does, think of it like a good analogy I use is a pilot light for a boiler. It takes the image and it sits there in a pilot light state, so you're paying a small amount, just imagine the gas you're paying for a pilot light, and then in the event of a disaster, it turns into that full compute power, so like the boiler takes effect, and that's when you start paying for the actual compute, but not until you actually have a disaster. So that's an efficient way for you to be ready in the cloud to recover. And what I do mean is if your servers go down, Steve, you can actually continue working on your site or from another site, and your servers will now be in the cloud working as you'd expect. It'll be slightly slower due to the connectivity, but they'll be up and running.
Brilliant. Thanks very much. And just to sort of confirm really that the real difference between backup and site recovery there is that the backup is really is a backup of your files. The actual site recovery allows you to actually recover your system and allows you to get up and running a lot quicker. So, okay, we're just going to now go on to sort of what starts to get the complicated side of Microsoft Azure, which is sort of infrastructure as a service. It sounds very complicated, but to make it simple for you, it is effectively a case of taking your file server that's sat in the corner and put that into what they call the cloud, which is technically another location. However, I'll let Urfaan give you a bit more of a techie overview of that, if you could explain that for us, Urfaan.
Yeah, so I think simplifying it like you've done is spot on, but infrastructure as a service just means we're renting the hardware off Microsoft. I want to keep it that simple. You either have a server coming to the end of life, or you have a requirement for an additional server. Rather than spending that capital expenditure up front, you can consider renting the server off Microsoft. And infrastructure as a service allows you to rent the hardware only. And you would be responsible for putting Windows Server on top, or us, managing it, patching it, keeping it up to date, and supporting it. So that's what it does. You might have a virtualized environment at present, or you might not, but this is a virtual machine in the Azure data center in Dublin that you can use, and you choose the power, and that's really as simple as it is.
Okay, thank you very much.
One thing I did want to mention though, one obvious benefit is there is no power consumption because that's at the data center, so you're not having to provide the power, and people don't realize how much power a server takes. Yeah. You're not providing the cooling, yeah, because you don't need an air conditioner in that room anymore because it's not there, the server, and you don't need to have replacement parts, redundant power supplies, RAID in your drives. A lot of that you don't need anymore, so that's why it's quite beneficial to consider it as an option.
Okay. And I suppose the question is, if I've put my server into Azure, how secure is it there?
Well, think about how secure your server is right now. It's in a building, it's got a gate or a door or a fence around your building, and you're backing it up using tapes and drives and so on. I've been lucky enough to be invited to the Microsoft data center, and there is 24/7 security guards. There is military grade. Not even Ethan Hawke from Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise, could get in. Really, it's that amazing. Biometric access. There's 3 different energy suppliers providing electricity into the data center via 3 different routes. There are multiple energy redundancy and data redundancy, and also there's 16 Caterpillar generators sitting there that are worth £1 million each, just in case. So, you know, I don't think our clients and ACUTEC could protect that data and make it as secure as Microsoft can. So I want to reassure people that that data does not leave Europe. It's safe and it can't be accessed by third parties. And I'm sure people will be thinking people will be trying to hack the systems, but Microsoft have really bet their company and organization on these solutions, so the security levels are multi-tiered.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. And obviously, again, on the page, you'll see that there is platform as a service and software as a service. Could you give us a bit more information on the differences between those, and so people can understand what that is?
Okay, so I talked about infrastructure as a service, and you're renting the hardware from Microsoft, but you're still being responsible for the operating system. Think as platform as a service as the next level. So not only are you renting the hardware, but you don't have to buy the operating system license anymore, or the CAL, the server CALs, or maybe even SQL, because we can rent the entire platform off Microsoft, so they're responsible for the server hardware, making sure it's redundant, that we can rent the operating system license off them, and we can have SQL delivered to us. So now you're in a position, if you are thinking of buying a line of business application, it might be an ERP system, it might be a CRM, it could be an accounts package. Now you don't have to think about buying a new server and then having ACUTEC install it, and having ACUTEC put Microsoft Windows Server on it, having ACUTEC put Microsoft Windows SQL on it, and then letting your Sage partner or CRM partner install the operating system. Install the application. You can go straight to that provider and say, we have provisioned a server ready for you to install your line of business application on. Here you go. And you would just be renting the server and the platform. No patching, no worries. The only thing you have to worry about is make sure your line of business partner is looking after their bit of the software.
Okay. And software, I suppose, as a service.
Yeah, so that differs because now it has the next level. So a couple of examples might be Gmail is software as a service. You don't think about the server, you don't think about the platform, you don't think about the operating system, you don't think about the messaging system. All you care about is receiving your email. And born in the cloud solutions like Salesforce, all you do is rent the CRM solution, and you're not worrying about where it's sitting because all that's looked after by Salesforce. Office 365 is exactly the same thing. Exchange Online just delivers you the email. Obviously, you still have to do a bit of administration where you're adding a user, taking a user away, but that's software as a service. And something like Sage Drive, that's software as a service. You're not worrying about the server, you're not worrying about the operating system, you're not worrying about the underlying platform like SQL, and you're not even worrying about the operating system anymore. You're just paying for a subscription for a service. So that's the difference. So there's the three layers.
Okay. Thank you very much. So those are the fundamental parts of what is available in Azure. But what else is to come? Or sorry, not what else to come. What else is available? Can I put my website up there?
Yeah. So obviously the family of products is substantial, and we want to keep it as simple as possible. But we have a number of our clients where we host their website in Azure. It's cost effective. It's scalable. Now, I use the word scalable because I remember a story where there were a couple of entrepreneurs who had a service. The service escapes me, I should have remembered it, but they were on Dragon's Den. They checked with their website hosting provider if any new traffic generated from their appearance on TV would be okay. The hosting provider was a small hosting provider, and they said yes. They went on to Dragon's Den. I think they had over 50,000 hits after being on TV, but no one actually saw their website because the server couldn't cope. So using web services provided by Azure is a fantastic tool. It's scalable, and it's cost effective. But also there's services like ExpressRoute. Some of you might be concerned about the connectivity to the Azure data center in Dublin. What Azure ExpressRoute allows you to do is to have a private virtual network between your site and the Azure data center, so no other traffic is transmitted over that, and it's only your data. Obviously, there's an additional cost to that, and stuff like machine learning. It sounds a bit scary, but what we're talking about is Microsoft have all this compute power. Why not plug into it to do some analysis for you? Doing some analysis on your own might be quite costly because you have to buy the analysis software, you need a lot of compute power, but if you have lots of data sitting in the background that you want to analyze, you can just subscribe to the machine learning service and let it tell you what's happening, when it's happening, and analyze that data for you. An example of this, and I don't want to scare anybody, but if you have Office 365 already, you will have a little folder called Clutter. That's machine learning in use at the moment. It observes, it's a scary word, but it just has observes what's happening over the month period. It sees you don't access that email. If somebody sends you this email, you normally ignore it or you delete it straight away. And what it does, rather than put it in spam, because you haven't set it in spam, it puts in a little folder called clutter, and it knows you rarely check these emails. So now what I do with my clutter at the end of every day, I just check what's in there. If there's anything important, I move it or just read it. Otherwise, I just delete it. So it learns your behavior, and it works for your benefits. So that's an example of machine learning. And one of the most important things Azure lets you do, and ACUTEC really would recommend this, is not think about moving everything to the cloud straight away unless we have a strategy for that. Use what you have on site, and we can set up hybrid modes where your server on-premise can talk to your new server in Azure, and it seems like an extension of your existing infrastructure. So actually, you can extend and scale your IT without having to make that capital expenditure, and you can access your data anywhere. So that's another brilliant feature.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Well, we are coming towards the end of our webinar today. If anyone any questions popped up at all as yet, if you do want to, we'll give you a few minutes to pop those up. I will just go over a couple of other things which we have seen already with people moving to Azure. It will reduce, you can look at ways of reducing costs, and one of the key things we've noticed was with insurance. I believe you've had an experience with this with a current client and actually reducing their insurance bill because they're not having the equipment on site.
Yeah, I think it is only nominal, I'll be honest, but it's something to think about. We have a client called Piers Hardy, and they use the Azure Site Recovery Service. They were thinking about having another server data center in their second site and having site-to-site replication. Instead, what they did, when we discussed the options with them, we suggested Azure Site Recovery, and they decided not to have that substantial capital expenditure. I think it was coming in about £50,000, and instead went with Site Recovery. Now, if their primary site fails, it automatically switches over to the cloud. That actually saved them £900 on their insurance premium. Because they went back to the insurance company and said, we have this in place. The insurance company knew it was less likely there would be a substantial business impact, and it brought down their premium. So there's less risk if your data is in a secure place like a cloud data center. So I think that's a good point to make.
Okay, thank you very much. Do you have any questions to me?
I have had one question asking about the pricing of Azure Backup.
Okay, so this can be quite complex, Azure as a whole, but pricing for Azure Backup can be as little as £10 per server up to £50, £60 depending on how much data you've got. That's per month. But obviously you've got to think about the management and keeping control of that. So if you, rough guide, think of anything between £30 to £50 per server, it's a good starting point for Azure Backup. Actually having an Azure server in the cloud, it could be as little as £10 a month, but that is obviously going to be a very tiny server doing something very basic. But pricing for servers can go from £10 all the way up to £500 per server per month. But I think realistically, for the type of clients that have standard processes, I think £50 to £250 per user per server per month is quite reasonable. But again, it can be quite cost efficient if we break down what actually that server needs to do. So it's not massive and it's on a monthly basis, so it can be turned on or off as your needs.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions to
That's
okay.
it, really.
We'll still give you a couple of minutes if you do want to raise any questions. And I think just to really reiterate or go back over from what I tried to say at the start, because it can sound very complicated, but you know, if you want to simplify it, the technical, you know, the simpler you can get with it, really, you can take the server you've got in the corner, or the box you know is the server in the corner, and put that into the cloud. That obviously is subject to you having a very good internet connection. You know, the standard ADSLs and things like that, they don't come with SLAs. They don't allow you to have, you know, guaranteed uptime. So, you know, that is a big caveat. If anybody who's on the webinar today would like a free assessment, if you want to drop an email to the marketing email on the screen, we will come and do a free assessment and see if your organisation is ready for going into the Azure, to see you know, how your systems run and see what's available or what options are available to you. So please feel free to drop us an email and we'll contact you and go for some options. Oh, we have had a question.
Okay. Before that question, can I just quickly build on what you said? What that assessment does is actually we would look at your current infrastructure, tell you if any of it could be put in the cloud or if you've got any new infrastructure going in the cloud, and actually tell you how much that would cost on a monthly basis. So,
someone's just asking about stable internet connections and of lease lines.
Yeah, it's building on what Steve said. I wouldn't recommend on ADSL this is considered. The minimum I would suggest is you have a fibre connection. The problem with a fibre connection is if you have something like BT Business Broadband, is that it doesn't have a service level agreement. It's normally on best endeavours, so please be aware that if your internet goes down, you're not going to be able to connect to the servers or the services. With a lease line, it's what we would recommend normally, but the cost can be prohibitive, anything between £150 per month all the way up to £1,000 a month, depending where you are. And a lease line is something that is dedicated to you. It has an SLA normally of anything between 99.9 to 99.99 guaranteed uptime with a 4-hour response. Sometimes that can be a 2-hour response to get it fixed. So you are guaranteeing that connection, and that is a professional service. And a lot of businesses see business broadband and think, oh, it must be for a business level, but really it is best endeavours. If the line goes down, BT Openreach their obligation is to fix it on their best endeavours, and really that's a struggle. But remember, you can move to another site, send your people home, and as long as you've got an internet connection, you can connect to your servers. So connectivity is something you really need to consider.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you very much. I don't think we've had any further questions, so I'll give it a minute or so just in case anybody just want to pop one in. But I will just sort of go over again. If you do want to speak to ACUTEC and want ACUTEC to come and give you a free assessment, please drop us an email at marketing@acutec.co.uk. We'll be more than happy to arrange for a consultant to come and have a chat with you and see what, you know, whether your systems are ready to move to Azure or what you need to do that. It doesn't look like we're going to get any more questions, so I'll probably finish that for now. I thank everybody for taking the time out of your day to come and join us, and please feel free to give any of us a call if you've got any further questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.